We're back like we never left because, really, we don't leave you. I barely slept over the last couple of days, but it's been great because NBA free agency has been absolutely awesome. Coming up on today's show, NBA free agency tracker, as well as our winners and losers on day 2 of NBA free agency. First, day 1 signings. Lonzo Ball to the Bulls, Will Barton to the Nuggets, Tim Hardaway to the Mavericks, Mike Conley to the Jazz, Boban Marjanovic to the Denver Nuggets, Garrett Temple to the Pelicans, Jimmy Butler, max contract as he stays with the Heat, JaMychal Green to the Denver Nuggets, Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel both return to the New York Knicks. Nice paydays for both. Jared Allen, speaking of nice paydays, $20 million per year. Pretty solid for one of the game's best young big men. Kelly Olynyk to the Detroit Pistons. TJ McConnell back with the Indiana Pacers. Cam Payne back to Phoenix to back up Chris Paul. Trae Young, he earned it throughout the playoffs. 5-year, $207 million rookie max contract extension. Luka Doncic, DeAndre Ayton next. We'll see. Kyle Lowry, 3-year, $90 million deal to the Miami Heat as part of that sign-in trade. Also with the Heat, they've been incredibly busy. Duncan Robinson inking that 5-year, $90 million deal. Torrey Craig to the Pacers. Doug McDermott to the San Antonio Spurs. More thoughts on that coming up. And Chris Paul, as I mentioned, going back to the Suns as they continue to try to capitalize on this championship window. 4 years, $120 million for the point guard. Sterling Brown to the Mavericks. Jeff Green to the Nuggets. Really like that value signing. David Nwaba to the Houston Rockets. Reggie Bullock to the Dallas Mavericks. Good complimentary piece for Luka Doncic. Mo Harkless back to the Kings. Bobby Portis, back to the Milwaukee Bucks. Going back to back, Bobby P, we'll see. Furkan Korkmaz re-signs with the Sixers, 3 years, $15 million. Gary Trent re-signs with the Raptors, 3 years, $54 million. Zach Collins going from Portland down south to San Antonio, 3 years, $22 million. Alex Len to the Kings. Mike Muscala re-upping with OKC. Trevor Ariza to the Lakers, veteran savvy move. So too was Wayne Ellington. He's going to be able to knock down a bunch of trade balls for the Los Angeles Lakers. Love what the Lakers are doing. Also, more thoughts on that coming up. Solomon Hill back with the Hawks. Dwight Howard, his 3rd stint with the Lakers. Evan Fournier got the bag from the Knicks. Nicholas Batum to the Clippers. Derrick Rose also securing the bag with the Knicks after he revived his career last year. 3 years, $43 million for D Rose. Alex Caruso to the Bulls to maybe back up Lonzo Ball, maybe even DeMar DeRozan. 4 years, $37 million. JaVale McGee is going to back up DeAndre Ayton, 1 year, $5 million. Corey Joseph, 2 years, $10 million to Detroit. Daniel Tice, $36 million from the Houston Rockets. Cody Zeller to Portland. Is that going to hold Dame in town? Jokes. Trey Lyles to the Pistons, 2 years, $5 million. PJ Tucker, 2 years, $15 million to the Heat. They've just been so active, and Pat Riley's fingertips are all over everything. Devontae Graham. I thought the Pelicans were going to be a loser. Then they brought in Graham. Like the player, like the deal around Zion Williamson. Austin Rivers goes back to the Denver Nuggets where he had some success in the playoffs last year. Norman Powell re-signs with the Blazers. 5 years, $90 million. Blake Griffin re-signs with the Nets. 1-year deal. Kent Bazemore late last night into contract as a bench man for the Los Angeles Lakers. Dwayne Dedmon, some front court depth, maybe behind Bam Adebayo. Probably going to have to battle for a roster spot. Not a bad backup big man, though. Max Strus to the Miami Heat. 2 years, $3.5 million. Rashawn Holmes, 4 years, up to $55 million for a guy who's really devoted a lot of time to perfecting his craft. He's become a well-rounded player. Because of that, he gets $55 million. Good example of some players out there. Semi Ojeleye from the Celtics to the Bucks on a 1-year deal. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like Trae Young, is also going to get a rookie max deal. 5 years, $172 million. Gabe Vincent, 2 years, $3.5 million. Otto Porter, all of these deals kind of happening late on Monday night, early on Tuesday, and throughout the day on Tuesday. Otto Porter to the Warriors, taking the vet min. Gorgie Jiang to the Hawks, 1 year, $4 million. Sam Decker was out of the league last year. He's now back in it with the Raptors. Can he resuscitate his career? Maybe. Highly touted prospect coming out of Wisconsin. He can certainly shoot it. Rudy Gay to the Jazz, 2 years, $12 million. I think it's a pretty good value signing for a guy who can still get some buckets and score. Nemanja Bjelica to the Warriors, that coming from Woj. Bruce Brown to the Brooklyn Nets, 1 year qualifying offer, $4.7 million. Rodney Hood to the Milwaukee Bucks, kind of like that as a depth signing as well as a wingman, and James Johnson to the Nets. And this coming down right now, the Lakers continuing to just be awfully busy. Rob Pelinka is just murdering the NBA free agency landscape. They have re-signed Talen Horton-Tucker to a 3-year, $32 million deal. So while the Lakers' focus has mostly been on some veteran players, they do bring back one of their youth studs in Talen Horton-Tucker, who still has a lot of potential. Speaking of the Lakers, Andre Drummond out of Los Angeles. He's going to Philadelphia. Taj Gibson re-ups with the Knicks. Robin Lopez goes from D.C. to Orlando. Abdul Nader, 2 years, 4.2. Didi Louzada signing with the Pelicans, 4-year deal. Full details TBA. Patty Mills, sneaky good signing that's going to fly under the radar. Back up. Kyrie Irving, really like it, 2 years, 12, very affordable price. Steph Curry signed his contract extension, 4 years, $215. He becomes the first player in NBA history to sign two $200+ million contracts. Carmelo Anthony going to team up with one of his best buddies in LeBron James. That's a 1-year deal to be a shooter from the outside. Same goes for Malik Monk, although he's much younger than a guy like Carmelo. Knocked down 40% of his threes last year. That's good stuff right there. DeMar DeRozan, one of the big shockers, one of the big recent developments, signing with the Chicago Bulls, who, like Miami, very, very aggressive so far in free agency. 3 years, $85 for DeRozan, and Tony Snell has signed with Portland. He played last year with the Atlanta Hawks. That is a 1-year deal. Full details to be announced. Make sure you subscribe to Chat Sports, because during NBA free agency, we're keeping you up to date with everything going on. NBA draft, we were live for like 8 straight hours. Day 1 of NBA free agency, we were live for like 7 hours. I've been live for hours today, but rest is for the weary. I'm not weak. I'm not soft. We're going to keep it going. With that, let's get to our NBA free agency winners. And we start now with the Chicago Bulls. For me, it's somewhat of a no-brainer. This is a team that I didn't really expect them to be as aggressive as they have been, but maybe what they did at the NBA trade deadline last year was a precursor to what we could expect during this NBA offseason. Then they traded for Nikola Vucevic. And now they've signed Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, the most recent one, DeMar DeRozan. You're looking now at a starting lineup in Chicago of Lonzo Ball at the 1, DeMar DeRozan at the 2, Zach Lavine at the 3, Patrick Williams, who I thought was a great draft pick last year, at the 4, and Nikola Vucevic at the 5. The Bulls have become a very fascinating and intriguing team in the Eastern Conference. If they're not able to make it to the playoffs next year, I think that's an absolute joke. This team is legit. Some concerns about the depth, but if they hold on to guys like Kobe White, that helps the bench production a lot. My second NBA free agency winner on day 2 of free agency, Los Angeles Lakers. They just re-signed Talen Horton-Tucker. That news coming in just now during our live show. And after they made that trade for Russell Westbrook, I had a lot of questions about the fit with Russ next to LeBron and AD, because Russ isn't an efficient shooter, right? Well, what have they done in NBA free agency? They've addressed that massive need. They were bereft of shooters before. They're not bereft of shooters any longer. If there's one concern I have with the Lakers, it's that this team, this roster, one of the oldest in NBA free agency. But as far as the fit, as far as the talent and the potential of this group for this upcoming season, and really this upcoming season only, I think the Lakers are back in that conversation as being an NBA title contender. They've signed Trevor Ariza, 3-and-D guy. Wayne Ellington, very good sharpshooter. Carmelo Anthony, still at this point, shooting 40% from distance. Dwight Howard, a great backup center who the Lakers really missed last year, helped you win a title 2 years ago. They signed Malik Monk, which was also a big surprise. Traded for Russell Westbrook last week, and the most recent news, Lakers signing Talen Horton-Tucker to a deal worth more than $30 million. Talen Horton-Tucker, still a young stud, only 20 years old, reminds me a little bit of a mini Draymond Green, because he can run some point for you, but also has some good size to him at 6'4", 234. My last NBA free agency winner, the Miami Heat. When NBA free agency started, the Miami Heat were going in. And I think every move that they've made just screams Pat Riley, culture, and Eric Spoelstra. Pat Riley is an OG. Pat Riley is a guy who has multiple rings. Pat Riley is a guy who is not satisfied with losing. And even though the Miami Heat went to the NBA Finals 2 years ago. Sour taste in the mouths of that organization that preaches culture, that preaches hard work, that preaches winning. And I think they're going to get back to their winning ways this year thanks to everything that they've done. Kyle Lowry, 3 years, $30 million per. Duncan Robinson, one of the better shooters in the league. Undrafted guy, gets the most money out of any undrafted player ever. PJ Tucker, another really good deal. So Miami Heat really rounding out that roster with very talented premier players, but also very good depth pieces as well. Who do you think is the biggest winner of the three that I just broke down? Do you think it's the Bulls, maybe the Lakers, or the Heat? Get into the comment section. Chat Sports, a very interactive YouTube channel. Type CHI for the Bulls. Type LAL for the Lakers. Type MIA for the Heat. Be sure to get those votes in and sound off in the comment section. Free agency losers now has to be the Boston Celtics. As of right now, on Tuesday afternoon, day 2 of NBA free agency, the Celtics have not made not one free agency signing. This coming after they only had one pick in the 2021 NBA draft. That's not good enough. This team has a lot of holes. This team has a lot of questions. And they haven't really done anything to address those questions or fill those holes. Look, I know Evan Fournier got a lot of money, and I'm not sure I'd give him around $18 million per year. But what is your plan B? I think some of the teams out there who are winners, in addition to the three that I mentioned, as well as the New York Knicks, they had a plan A. They were going to go after some stars, but they had a plan B. For the Celtics, it's almost like, oh, we didn't even plan for these players to not be available if the market didn't go our way. They lose Evan Fournier, somewhat of a big loss, but not really. You lose Semi Ojeleye, but you don't get Lonzo Ball, so you miss out on him. You don't get an affordable option like Patty Mills or maybe TJ McConnell. You still have questions at center as well as a stretch big. Boston Celtics, no doubt a free agency loser for me. Memphis Grizzlies. This is a team that I've been high on in the past. I think they've done a lot of smart things to build that organization. Ja Morant, I think he's a future superstar if he's not already. Dylan Brooks, really good player. Desmond Bane, great value with where you got him in the NBA draft back in 2020. But I thought Zaire Williams at number 10 as a developmental project, a little weird because I'm not sure how well he's going to be able to play right away. You get Aldama at number 30, just an okay pick. Basically, in that trade with the Pelicans, you moved all the way up to number 10, and I think you still could have gotten Zaire Williams at that original slot that you traded up from. And in free agency, no signings so far. This is a team that surprised a lot of people last year, certainly has upside and potential. Ja Morant is a superstar caliber player, but you need to continue to build around him. Memphis Grizzlies haven't done that as of now. San Antonio Spurs, my last NBA free agency loser. Look, when I was growing up, the Spurs were one of the great franchises in the NBA. Multiple NBA titles. I remember being a kid watching, David Robinson, as well as Tim Duncan team up for the Twin Towers down in San Antonio. I grew up with Manu Ginobili as well as Tony Parker. Remember seeing Kawhi Leonard surprise a lot of people as a young player out of San Diego State when the Spurs took a chance on him in the first round. But over the last couple of years, the Spurs have not operated like a well-run organization. I'm not sure if they can't get in touch with Greg Popovich, who's overseas coaching the Olympic team in Tokyo. I understand that's an important duty for him. But what are the Spurs doing? $14 million per season for Doug McDermott? I know some people are high on it, right? But I'm not, because he's somewhat limited and he's a sieve defensively. You can talk about him coming off of screens and backdoor cuts all you want. Just think $14 million per for Doug McDermott is a lot, even though you value shooting in today's NBA. Zach Collins certainly has potential. He can be good. Dealt with a lot of injuries, though. The Spurs still need that next cornerstone player. They need a big man. They need shooting, and they haven't really addressed those issues besides shooting and I guess a backup big man. And then they lost DeMar DeRozan. I didn't expect the Spurs to bring back DeMar DeRozan, especially at the price tag in which the Bulls offered him. He's going to be making $28 million per year. For a 31-year-old on a team right now in the Spurs that seems to be rebuilding, when you draft Josh Primo at number 12, I think that indicates you're undergoing a rebuilding process. Didn't make sense to bring back DeMar DeRozan, right? But in that trade, you get back Thaddeus Young and a future first-round pick in 2025. Another reason why I think the Spurs are certainly rebuilding. Who do you think the biggest loser is in free agency here as we sit here on day 2? Type BOS for the Celtics, type MEM for the Memphis Grizzlies, type SAS for the San Antonio Spurs. Be sure to get those votes in the comment section down below and let me know your biggest loser.